Cortez. Brittany Cortez is the Vice President for External Affairs of the Associated Students, and she'll tell you about how they sponsored and why they sponsored the viewing of the presidential debate, the third debate. Here we are, Ms. Brittany Cortez. You can tell us why and how this was all about.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mathews.
Sure.
Well, good evening, everybody. We wanted to take the time to go ahead and give access to our students on campus the presidential debate because, as a lot of people know, young students don't go out and vote. A lot of students aren't really involved in politics, and they really have low interest when it comes to that. And we did this whole thing so that we can allow them, like, hey, your voice is important. It's really important for you to be involved in politics. It's really important for you to understand what's going on in the world, what's going on with our future leaders, and exactly how it's going to affect us in the generations. And as a student government, we just decided to make a last-minute detail and be like, okay, let's give our students the opportunity to be able to have contact with the presidential debates by just taking an hour and a half, listening to their opinions and listening to what they decide and what their goals are when it comes to their political campaigns and stuff like that. But we just really wanted to allow our students to be able to get access because a lot of people say that they don't have time or they don't know where to watch it. They don't know the whole different things. And we just wanted to make it super easy. Also with some few snacks, just
The
sit
snacks
down.
do help, don't
Yes,
they?
the snacks.
And the drinks, the popcorn. Popcorn is awesome.
Yeah. And just take the time to listen to their future leaders and their future, their presidential candidates because, we are in a time where it's one side or the other, but just to really sit down, really concentrate on what they're saying, and just to make a final decision when it comes to their actual voting.
Excellent. So by hearing at least these two sides of the view, now we know there are 4 candidates on
Correct.
the most ballots,
Correct.
most of the states,
Correct.
but at least we have the 2 main ones here,
Correct.
and the students could then ascertain which ones come across with better reasons, better information for their positions, and have a respectful discussion after that with each other from now on for the next 3 weeks.
Exactly, yes.
And finally cast their vote on November the 8th.
Yes.
So this is
yes.
a tremendous service that the Associated Students of Cypress College has
Thank
done
you.
for
Thank
the
you.
students here. And I'm hoping other colleges have done this across the country.
Yes.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yes. Well, we actually know that Santa Monica College actually
Santa
took
Monica
the time
does.
to be able to show their students. They also had photos on their Instagram, Twitter,
Of
allowing us.
course.
And we also had our students. But I'm just really glad you guys came out and were able to be aware of your different candidates.
And nothing like social media to get the word out.
Exactly. Yes.
But it was quite an interesting debate, and
Yes.
rather than asking who won or lost, maybe we're going to talk about some of the highlight points of what do you think that these candidates addressed that could be of concern to college students specifically, and also U.S. residents and citizens, which also all of you are anyway. You're not just students.
Great.
You live in this country, you work here, you do pay taxes, and you're concerned about certain issues. What did they address and what they didn't address? Who would like to take on the first answer of that question? Anyone?
I thought the Syria questions, particularly, actually did address Clinton's no-fly.
You may have to speak up a little louder, I'm not sure, or come a little closer, if you would mind, come the chairs a little closer, guys. And let's get, can you get a little closer? You want to be, okay, that's fine. Here we go.
All right, I'm glad they.
Would you like to come in the picture?
Sure.
We'd love to have you, yes.
Sure.
All right. Anyways, I'm glad they actually did address the no-fly zone policy.
Yes.
Because.
You can pull your chair up a little bit closer here so we can get a little bit closer, yeah.
Closer.
Yeah, this camera allows us to have quite a, okay. So you were saying once again?
I'm glad they actually addressed the Clinton's no-fly zone policy, because that is potentially going to cause World War III if they don't handle it correctly. And Clinton at least mentioned that, yeah, she's going to try to remain diplomatic with Russia throughout the policy, but Trump didn't bother to actually mention any of that.
Or to challenge her on that.
Yeah, and it was brought up by the moderator instead of her opponent, so I think it's just a really big shame that Trump is her opponent in this case. Any other Republican would actually give us a better chance of actually challenging the Democratic candidate in this case. Or one of the third-party candidates would probably be a better choice too.
And that's a very serious issue. Syria has been at the forefront of the news, and a tragic issue where thousands have been killed and died in this tragic situation with the Syrian government tottering. And Russia has been an ally of this, is an ally of the Syrian government. And so when Russia runs its airplanes and bombing campaigns to ostensibly destroy ISIS, they say, and to probably strengthen Assad. And here's Hillary Clinton proposing a no-fly zone, which means that no Russian planes will be allowed to fly over that area. And in case they do, and they conflict with a ground-to-air missile, and one of them gets shot down, this could erupt in a tremendous conflict, couldn't it? So Trump didn't seem to challenge her on that, as you said.
Well, he doesn't seem to have any type of coherent policy on it, and he disagrees with his own vice president on these issues.
On these issues.
And I think he's even said in the previous debate that he hasn't even talked to him on this topic. And isn't that just like the
That's
most
so amazing.
Well, it's just a basic organizational thing that you actually develop a cohesive position,
Right.
and then you get the people that are working for you ostensibly to follow along with it, and he doesn't even seem capable of that. So I think it really goes to challenge his assertion that he would run a good government because he'd run it like a business or something when he can't even get a single cohesive
campaign organization.
Yeah.
Yes. That makes a lot of sense. Do you mind if we switch with each other here, please? Because I want to ask the young lady, a young woman, what are her positions on these issues that you just heard, and especially from a point of view of a young woman, or just a student and a citizen or a resident of the United States? That's what you thought the candidates, how they handled themselves in terms of what they talked about, what they didn't talk about. And your name, please?
My name is Amanda Eros. I'm actually the Associate Student President here at Cypress College.
Wonderful. Good to have Mr. President here.
Yeah.
President Amanda.
Yes.
Pleasure.
One of the things that I would like to speak about was, I know that the one thing that I feel many people have on Hillary is the whole Benghazi issue.
Yeah.
I feel like her responses are very vague. Her response is always that the FBI just said that they had no case. And to me it's rather interesting because it's something that is constantly brought up, but I feel it's somewhat just like the conversation people just always try to turn the conversation and avoid it.
It's not looked into in depth.
Absolutely.
Or in depth.
But in my opinion, I think that because I know Trump in the second debate has talked about having a personal prosecutor,
Yes.
I think that would be a rather interesting case if they were actually to do that.
A special prosecutor is what he's
Yes.
talked about.
Right.
If he becomes president, he would get the Justice Department under him to appoint a special prosecutor to investigate some of these things. Yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah, I actually think that's something that I have found most interesting and would really like to see.
Are you thinking about going to law school by any chance?
I'm not. I'm not. I'm not, but I find it really interesting.
It really is, and I really wish that they would focus more on other issues other than these issues of illegalities and emails and Trump's sex tapes and videos. I know some of that has to be talked about, but what about the plans for the United States of America? What are they going to do about tuitions? Like Trump he just ran over that issue completely. Didn't even touch it. Hillary said we're going to get tuition-free education for those whose family incomes are under $125,000 a year, and then Donald Trump said I'm going to help the students. That's all he said, right?
Yeah.
Did he give more detail on it?
He did not.
At this time he did not. But I wish he would. Do you know much about what his position is on it?
I don't actually.
Try to find out.
I haven't. Yeah, I would like to.
And he's taking a position on helping our public schools, K through 12, with supporting school vouchers and more of a privatized approach, which most Republicans do, not privatized entirely, but to encourage choice and vouchers. Hillary would, of course, put more money into it, and I thought the difference between the two sides in saying that one of them would like to raise more funds, government funds, by closing corporate loopholes, maybe taxing the super rich a little bit more, and bring the money to invest in this country's economy, in our education, in the infrastructure, and create public sector jobs. That was the Hillary position. And Trump said we're going to cut taxes on the wealthy and cut taxes on the investors and on many people, even the working class and middle class. But cutting taxes for Trump would then stimulate the economy. He said it will create more investment, it would expand businesses. It's sort of a type of trickle-down economics, or supply-side economics, to give it the correct term. And he was going back to supply-side economics to some extent. He is different than many Republicans in the sense that he's also advocating against these free trade agreements, right? He's saying NAFTA was a disaster, that we should have more fair trade rather than free trade. TPP was could be a catastrophe if it goes through with Trans-Pacific partnerships would allow all these products to have no tariffs on them coming in and going back and forth with borders. And then you'll have possibly export of more jobs. That's the criticism of that is there could be more export of jobs as we had under NAFTA. And Trump is using that. It's very unusual for a Republican candidate to come out and talk against free trade and outsourcing as he has. It's quite remarkable. That kind of gets, I think, lost though in some of the other parts of the discussion or the points that are made. Do you think? What do you folks think? Here, let's pull up a little bit. There we go. We're doing musical chairs here. That's fine.
Hello.
This is great.
It's an honor to be here.
Thank you for being here.
To see, in my opinion, Trump goes everywhere. So, in other words, what I'm trying to say is he doesn't have any policy.
Hmm.
He would be a horrible politician. He would be the worst president in the American presidency in the history of presidents because he's a businessman.
Okay.
What I give him props for is that he's selling this American dream to the American people as a businessman. But if you see his policies, he has no policy. He has no policy for foreign policy. He has no policy for domestic policy. All he has are these sound bites. And for example, about education, he'll
Okay.
just briefly just brush on it, but he'll never go in depth because he has no policy. He doesn't know what he's doing. And it's very interesting how he got into the Republican Party, although he has been shifted several times throughout his
Right,
history.
right.
In addition to that, I found it extremely irresponsible how he would say in his previous rallies how the election is rigged.
Yes.
For example,
That's his favorite word, rigged.
yes, and
Yeah.
that is dangerous. That is
Oh, let's talk about that.
irresponsible. For example, because our democracy is stable because of our legitimacy. Our legitimacy is extremely important for the peaceful transition of government.
power, yes.
Yes, and if we don't have that, that will break down that will create instability in our democracy. So that is extremely dangerous and irresponsible. And other things I find irresponsible, things such as foreign nuclear weapons. I just we are the global hegemony of the world. Okay.
At this point, yes.
Yeah, yes, we are.
Mhm.
We live in a unipolar world. Of course, we shouldn't get involved in certain things, but we are going to be involved. We can't just bail out and say, okay, no, NATO. That is extremely irresponsible, dangerous, and that is not in the interest of the American government or the American people. That is, anything that Trump says, I just find extremely irresponsible. Just anything.
Okay, so let's talk a bit about NATO for a minute. You know, when the Soviet Union basically was signed out of existence by Gorbachev, around that time, our president and our Secretary of State had made a commitment to the Soviet leadership that once this was over and we had now 15 different republics, with Russia being the successor state, that the United States and NATO leadership would not extend NATO to the borders of the former Soviet Union, and that we would not bring in former Soviet republics into NATO. And yet we turn around, as soon as that thing was signed and the Soviet Union went out of business, and we decided to go and do that. Am I right or not? We brought in Poland, we brought in Estonia, Latvia. They wanted to come in, of course, because of their security concerns of themselves. But we brought them in without even considering that this could be a provocation to Russia's own security, or their perception of what we're doing coming up to their borders like that. Because keep in mind, Russia's history is such that in the last 150 years, Russia has been invaded, seriously invaded, 3 times. From Napoleon, Kaiser Wilhelm, Hitler, and they have this concern and really fear that the West can come in any time because there's no natural boundaries. There have been land invasions mostly. And so something like NATO is a very sensitive topic. And so I would suggest that Trump doesn't articulate any of this properly. He's like just hitting and missing on these things. You know, it's a real problem as a candidate for the Republican Party. But something else I want to talk about, the debt. The gentleman over there, yes sir. You were speaking to students about the debt burden. Can you come and tell us what that's about? And this is very important, the national debt issue. And let's introduce you first of all yourself.
Yes.
Pull your chair up a little bit closer so I can not turn so far to the back to look at you. There we go. We can go. There we go. We're all in here. Okay. Go right ahead. Please introduce yourself, please.
My name is Alfredo.
Do you go to school here also?
Yes,
Okay.
I study, actually, I'm in the GIS
Oh, yes.
program.
Geographic Information System.
Yes, so, and what I study is interdisciplinary sciences.
Okay.
So my approach is applying spatial data to topics that we don't normally think of involving that. So
Yes.
politics, campaigning, elections. My background is in political science. I graduated from UCR.
Okay.
So that's kind of, my
So you're doing
interest and my
GIS
draw.
here now, after
I'm doing
doing political
GIS
science
here,
degree.
yeah. In the data sciences.
Yes.
So with me, one of the issues that I saw going to college was the student debt and how it was very unsustainable.
Yes.
I suffered a lot with having issues paying for tuition, student loans, and just the general sense of not being sure if I was going to continue my studies. quarter to quarter,
Mm-hmm.
and that's one thing.
The uncertainty was
the
must have been
uncertainty.
horrible.
Yes, that's one thing that a lot of students, once you transition from a community college or a junior college to a university, the costs go exponentially.
Yes.
And that's one thing that a lot of students, a lot of times, don't have proper resources or funding, or they just may not understand the way the economics of education work. And what I saw at the end of my education was that I was lucky enough to where I worked. I didn't have these tens of thousands of dollars in loans,
Mm-hmm.
but most of my friends, my roommates,
They had it.
everybody that I know today still is paying tens of thousands of dollars in school loans. And what I see is a lot of them are not getting the return on their investment.
Yes.
So what's going on is they have these huge payments with interest that they cannot pay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I've looked at for a while now, and I've been affected by directly. So it's an issue that I think we turn a blind eye to.
Yes.
But just like the housing bubble, it's gonna come back
It's
up.
the second
soon.
largest debt after the federal debt, isn't it?
Yes.
$1.3 trillion.
And in the next, in the upcoming, I can't say how many years, but it's expected to surpass that debt eventually. So that's one issue that I think young people like myself, millennials, we're very affected by, and it's very conflicting because we want to do something about it. We
Yes.
want to know more, learn more, and tackle this issue, but we don't have the resources, we don't have the information, we don't understand the financial market. So it's very difficult for us to focus on, getting an education is very hard as is. Now imagine the uncertainty of, not knowing where your money's going to come from, your funding. That's another issue that I think affects a lot of students' success.
Absolutely. Thank you for introducing that. We'll go into more detail. I'll give you some numbers on it. But first, what are you doing about it? Right? You have some campaign going, signature gathering. You asked
Yes.
me? Tell us about what you were here.
So I'm
doing
here
this
with
evening.
the organization is called Up to Us.
Up to Us.
Up to Us. It's a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization.
Okay.
And what we do is we create awareness in college campuses. So I am leading this Cypress College chapter, and what
Okay.
we do is we try to engage students through social media,
Mhm.
direct action, writing to your congressman, even
Yes.
knowing where to look for a congressman or your
Yes.
local representative, knowing the difference between a congressman, a senator, and what they do.
Yes.
So what we do is more broad in the sense that we're bringing these big issues and breaking them apart
Mhm.
to students that don't have any past background or knowledge of, and then finding a way to sending them in the right direction, whether they're interested in being civically engaged, they're
Mhm.
interested in campaigning, we can then, partner them up with a cause or an organization that they care about. And it's
Okay.
all through, working with your school network. So we're working on building that group of students that are really want to be involved and create that, like I said, that awareness, and also be an advocate, not just for their education and students, but
Mhm.
also, for just being a millennial. And, a lot of what we stand for is not represented in politics.
Okay, so your goal of your organization is not just about student debt, although that's a major
Yeah.
issue out of all, but also other ways of being engaged for your generation's
Yeah.
future and present.
Definitely.
In terms of what can you do to make the world more livable for you and better,
Yeah.
more optimistic, and also opportunities. So you're going to engage students in civic engagement,
Yes.
your organization, to get them
Yes.
involved after educating them,
After educating them.
and then hearing from them, and then putting it together in a movement. You're trying to get a movement started to
Yes,
some extent.
definitely.
Would you say?
And the way that we're doing this, it's different because we're not only working with other students, but we're engaging with other schools across
That's
the
excellent.
country.
What a great idea.
So universities from the East Coast,
Uh-huh.
West
Across the
Coast,
country.
across the country, seeing what ideas they have,
Yes.
what issues. Because at the end of the day, we all have different backgrounds, but
Sure.
we face the same issues.
Right.
So
May I
that's-
just tell you and also the audience a couple of things about how I see the student debt problem. I was in college many years ago, 30 years ago, and our generation had tuition-free education, literally. In California, the tuitions were $37 a semester at UC Berkeley Law School, and Governor Pete Wilson went there. He attended UC Berkeley Law School for 3 years, paid $37 a semester, and graduated in 3 years, got his law degree. Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, went to Santa Monica College and paid $6 for all 15 units back in the mid-'70s for his associate degree.
That's
How many students know this? And Up to Us should probably spread the word on this.
yeah.
That in this California state, state of California, we had tuition-free education for 20 years, from 1960 till the 80s. I started teaching here in 1976 in California, and the first 3 years, my students at Foothill College up north paid $6 for all 15 units. They wrote a $6 check to the registrar at the college, picked their classes, 5 classes, 15 units, or 12 units, full load, and went to class. And they were in my class, got their grades, transferred in 2 years with 0 debt. And then the universities, the UCs and CSUs were also very affordable at that time, tuition free basically. So this is the terrible burden that we put on our young people today. The numbers are staggering. We mentioned $1.3 trillion total student debt today. And that comes out to actually students that are graduated with a college degree, a bachelor's degree today in America, have a total, there are 40 million students with a bachelor's degree with a student debt of $30,000 each on the average. $30,000 each on the average. Some of your friends, you mentioned, your friends are still are paying off on that, right? So this has to be addressed immediately. I'm so excited and happy and inspired that students are taking action now about this. And the student debt issue drives it, and then you go on to other issues as well, right?
Yes.
So let me help in any way I can. I really would like to do that. This is dear to my heart.
Definitely would like to
and
reach out.
I've been looking for this type of leadership among the students. It can't come from me. It has to come from you guys, and I'll be there to support you and people like me. And we can bring some of our faculty aboard and other faculty, because many of us, when we were your age, we got tuition-free education or totally affordable education. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's why I like the fact that Hillary Clinton is promoting tuition-free education for families whose children are in college, but the families are making $125,000 or less. With Bernie Sanders' plan, it was for every student to get that, no matter what your parents make. The whole principle of tuition-free education, and to me, to Bernie and to someone like me, is more of a spiritual principle. That we are sisters and brothers keepers. That our Constitution, actually our preamble to the Constitution says that we the people are establishing this in order to get a more perfect union and to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. That is the next generation. It's charged in our Constitution that people like me in the older generation are required morally and constitutionally to provide for you, the posterity, the same blessings that we got. How can you not create tuition-free education? That's the only way you can do it. And what about France? What about countries like France, Germany, Sweden, Denmark, Slovenia today? What's the tuition over there, sir?
Free.
Free for their students, all the way through university.
It's good that you mentioned that. One of the things is we all of us, I think, grew up in an age where you don't know free education. It's like, what is that?
You can't even imagine it.
It seems crazy to even hear about that. So, with the campaign, I think even the name itself, Up to Us.
Up to Us is a great name. It's a great name.
Is, like you said, we're supposed to leave behind something for the next generation. And I think a lot of us have seen that. It hasn't always been that way, or at least not now.
No,
so
not in this
that's
generation.
why it's Up to Us, like the name says it.
It's a great name, and we need to get you some publicity and get you on more and get some of your other members on and talk about the issues you're facing as you go, the obstacles and the victories in this area. So what about other things, folks? What about climate change? Did the candidates address climate change today?
Hillary Clinton mentioned it once.
She mentioned it once. That's it. So that's not too good, because that's like the most critical issue for a lot of us who believe in the science, right?
Definitely.
And how we are down the path right now toward destruction. Unless we reverse course, we might be able to ameliorate it, but we cannot even reverse it entirely until we get moving. So this is a very important issue. Donald Trump in the past has said he doesn't believe in it. He doesn't believe it exists. He says it's a Chinese plot. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
It's a Chinese plot to hurt our economy. The global warming and climate change is a Chinese plot. That is the most ridiculous thing I've heard of anyone speak, let alone a presidential candidate. So these issues have to be made public, and hopefully we can engage with this election and inform and educate each other about these issues and spread the word before the next 3 weeks is up. And keep in mind, we should let people know there are 2 other candidates running on the ballot. Jill Stein, the Green Party candidate. Jill Stein is on the ballots of about 47 states or more, so she can technically win the Electoral College vote if people vote for her. She's of the Green Party. And then Gary Johnson, the candidate of the Libertarian Party, is on all 50 state ballots. And so there are choices, but this is an interesting question I got to ask for you. This is very controversial too. How do you view this election in terms of the options of voting for a third party or fourth party versus the 2 mainstream parties, of which many people are not satisfied with these 2 candidates, not that well satisfied compared to most times. But here you have options of other parties, and yet you may be concerned that the other two parties don't have much of a chance of winning, and so you want to make sure that one of these two candidates that you think is horrible and not good for the country should not get in. So it's more of a negative vote this year. Many people are voting for Hillary because they don't want Donald Trump. They're scared of him. Many people are voting for Trump because they don't want Hillary. So this is an unusual election that hasn't happened in modern history.
Definitely.
What do you think of this? Let's hear from someone who hasn't spoken yet. Come on up. Okay, maybe they can see you still. There you go. Pull up a little chair a little bit. Oh, come on up here. We'll switch chairs. Yeah, that's right. Thank you. And your name, please.
Oh yeah, my name's Nick.
Nick, okay.
Yep. Well, I guess you'd have to, yeah, because the people who are voting for the main candidates are going to say, well, we don't want to throw our votes away. What happened was Ralph Nader,
Mm-hmm.
like he came in and people voted for him, and was that which election?
The 2000 election,
2000?
when Al Gore
Okay,
ran
that's
against George W. Bush,
That's what I thought. Yeah.
and Ralph Nader ran as the Green Party candidate.
So and then Al Gore lost, and then everyone kind of blamed Ralph Nader for that.
Want to come back in here, Tim? Okay.
And
For a
I
minute?
wanted to ask him a question. That's
Yeah.
But
We're talking about the 2000 election now and how Ralph Nader ran as a Green Party candidate. And
Yeah.
the conundrum that people have now with the fact there are 4 candidates in the ballot, almost all, in fact, Jill Stein, the Green Party candidate, is on 47 state ballots, and she can technically win the Electoral College vote if people vote for her. Gary Johnson's on all 50 state ballots. He can be voted upon by everyone in the country, and so he's technically eligible to actually win if people vote for him. And yet, almost everyone in the media is focused only on Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And so you're concerned, some of you are concerned that if you did vote for, let's say in a state where it's close, like Florida, in California, Hillary's way ahead, 20% ahead of Trump. So we have the luxury of being able to vote for a third or fourth party that we believe in. But in states like Florida, where it's a state that could swing either way and give the election one or the other, then that could, if you vote for Jill Stein or for Gary Johnson, you might throw the election to one of the other two candidates that you don't want, right? What do you think about it? He's talking a bit about it. I'd like to bring you in on it in a second too, or maybe involve you together in the conversation. Pull it up a little bit. Can we get it?
No, please.
Okay.
Please.
No, we got to get all there. We can see everyone, I think, pretty much. Go right ahead. You were continuing.
Yeah,
Continue with it.
so I think the like with you hear a movie about a movie coming out and there's a big celebrity in it, because of familiarity, we would have to encourage people in the media or find a way that we can promote third-party candidates on top of the two main candidates that get pushed all the time. Because I've heard like 95% of this election period or whatever, this pre-election period, whatever you call it, I've only been hearing about Trump. That's it, just Trump, and then like Hillary, little bits here and there, but just Trump everything. Obviously that doesn't mean he's gonna win, but and I can't really imagine Trump winning. Not to say that he should or shouldn't, but yeah, we would have to. And then the people voting for the two main candidates, they're going to go for them, so we'd have to find a way to encourage people who are apathetic to not be apathetic and to go out and vote and say, hey, well, if you don't want to vote for these two, we have these other candidates. You can make a change by promoting these third-party candidates and get the momentum going, and the next time people go, oh, well, maybe more people vote, like they'll be higher up, and then people will see that there's progress being made, and then because it was third party, like when the country first started, wasn't it? There was like didn't we have a
Well, the country's always been a two-party system. And whenever one party started to fizzle out, another party came in to take its place, and it was kept a two-party system.
Okay.
However, there have been third parties that have brought in many major changes. They pushed for changes. They never got elected, like the Populist Party, but they brought in a lot of changes that were important. But going back to this thing, the way you could get these third and fourth parties to be known is to have them in the debates. But to do that, you have certain thresholds. You have to meet a threshold that the duopoly two-party system is controlling the debate commission. They are part of the debate. They're the debate commission who decides on the rules. So they set a rule saying anyone to be in the debate has to be in the polls at 15% or higher. It's almost impossible without being in the debates, right? So you can have them lower the threshold to say 5% on the first debate. And let's say then the third-party person comes up with 6% of the vote after the first debate. Then if they get to 10%, get them in the second debate. Make it a staggered situation where the public will have a chance to hear in a massive way in the national debates, because the audience is huge, right? 84 million people watch the first debate. And when they don't know who Jill Stein is or who Gary Johnson is, they don't even know they exist,
I'd even
or what their
hear
ideas
Jill
are.
Stein.
Yeah, how are they going to want to vote for them? So this is a very problematic for a democracy in this country. What do you think about that?
Sure. Honestly, I didn't know who the other candidates were. I've only known about the primary candidates. I knew that they existed, but I didn't know who they were.
Right.
And honestly, I think that the reason there's so much attention drawn towards Hillary and Trump specifically, because he says such outrageous things, and he's not afraid to not be politically correct, as most people would say. But I think that it would be rather fascinating to see third-party candidates debate, because I think that they would have a much better chance of winning if their views were
known.
Absolutely.
Excellent. So we can work on that also. Now, what about electoral college? Do you guys like this electoral college system where technically it's not we the people who vote directly and choose the president, but we guide and we choose the electoral college, and they go and vote for the president 3 weeks later, right? You know about the electoral college?
I do.
Yeah, and how it works state by state. Would you like to abolish the electoral college and have a direct popular vote for the president? Have you thought about that before? What do you guys, anyone?
I have not thought about it. The only thing that I would fear if we had a popular vote was, for instance, I've heard that this year the millennials will outnumber the
baby boomers
in
yes,
voting.
That's right.
And not necessarily are the millennials
or maybe
always
the Xers.
The X generation.
So baby boomers will outnumber the generation Xers in voting, you're saying, this year.
Oh, that's okay. Well, then I got it way backwards.
Because the boomers are still, in numbers, the size of the baby boom is larger than the size of the millennials is larger than the baby boom generation in raw numbers. But in terms of actual votes, I think you're saying that you would outnumber the generation Xers, which is a smaller generation.
Right.
In terms of votes, good point.
Right. My only fear is that if people aren't necessarily as informed when it comes to voting, or a majority of the people that vote kind of just vote based on hearing things, that could go very wrong.
Yeah, a very good point. So in that case, if you're going to abolish the electoral college and have a direct popular vote, as they do in France, in France the people vote directly for the president on a Sunday. 2 weeks later, they take the top 2 vote getters and run them up against each other, so the majority of the population has to actually vote for the candidate that wins, and that becomes the winner. So if we did that, you'd have to have a highly educated population, wouldn't you?
Right.
Highly politically educated and informed, and that's another big task.
Yeah, and I had a roommate a little while ago who was a political science major, and he talks about politics a lot, and he was asking me, about what I was gonna do, who I was gonna vote for, and I'm like, well, I'm not gonna vote because I don't feel informed enough, and he's like, that's the best thing I've heard anyone say when it comes to this. But but I mean, a lot of people, you can ask them lots of questions about things and they don't know, they just kind of go with their gut and say, well, I like this person, and maybe that person's not gonna do the best job for the country, like in the previous elections, like for example, when Hillary and Barack Obama were running, when Bill Clinton was running in, what was it, 92?
92.
For the first time, between the other candidates was Ross Perot
and George H.W. Bush.
I was pro Bill Clinton, and part of that was I was like, oh, I wasn't taking it too seriously, but I'm like, he seems like the best candidate, and it seems like he did a pretty good job as far as I know. I mean, politics are complicated, but he seems like he did a pretty good job. And so when Hillary and Barack Obama were running, I was like, well, I'm comparing these two. Her husband did a really good job. Is this guy gonna do a good job? He seems like an I don't want to say infinitely more likable person, but he seemed like, if I was gonna hang out with someone, I would definitely, out of anyone, I would want to hang out with Barack Obama.
Right.
But I don't know necessarily how good a job he's gonna do.
You're concerned about that.
Yeah, and Bill Clinton, he had the sex scandal and stuff, but I'm not interested in his personal business.
Right.
I'm interested in how he's gonna run the country and what kind of job he's gonna do. That's what I'm interested in. That's that's his thing. And so now that it's between Hillary and Trump, it's a matter of, wait, what was the original question?
Well, we were talking about abolishing electoral college and letting the regular folks, the regular people like you and me vote directly for the president.
Yeah, and so now it's like a matter of, how do we know who's going to do a better job? The person with a ton of political experience, but may have enough power that maybe they aren't necessarily pressured to do the right thing, and they have, you know, conflict of interest between their connections or who they owe favors to, whatever. Same thing with Trump, you know.
With money and politics and
Yeah,
the whole thing.
yeah. And Trump, I mean, you know, is he gonna run the country like a business and run it really effectively? And is he gonna maybe make the country prosper, but at the cost of, you know, maybe there's gonna be a lot more pollution, things like
So you
that.
have a lot of questions for these candidates. They're not resolved yet in your mind. You have to do more research.
Yeah, and that's, well, I mean, it seems obvious that Trump is, you know, he's kind of, you know, he's got some liberal leanings, but he's got some very, when it comes to business and like conservative views, where his focus is on the economy over the environment, and, you know, similar in China, where, you know, Hong Kong is totally polluted.
And that's another issue. There doesn't have to be one or the other, you know, environment or economy. It could actually be both. If we look at how we can create new jobs with new technologies, with more alternative energy technologies, mass transit, high-speed rail. You could go into solar panels and wind power and tide power. Those products can be built in a new way if there's an active role the government provides funding for that kind of thing, including for small business. So we'll talk about it. I want to make sure the last person who's in this group has a chance to say a word. You haven't even had a chance to say it. Would you like to say a few things about what you think? Yes. Come right up. Let's switch chairs here a second. Thank you. Your name and introduce yourself, please.
Okay, yes, my name is George. I'm actually an international student.
Oh, very nice. Where are you from, George?
I'm from Greece.
Very nice. I've been to Greece. What a
Politics and
beautiful
economics is quite interesting
yes,
in our
political
country.
economics.
But I think it's interesting the way someone else views it from the outside.
From the outside, it is.
And I think
Let's
the biggest
hear
thing from the debate, I've watched the three debates because
Yes.
I'm into social media and there's a lot of criticism.
Yeah.
That's one of the ways Donald Trump gets most attention through social media.
Yes.
And I think the most missing part was, let's say, an average American to vote, he needs to have a knowledge. It's hard to have a knowledge about how to run a country. It's quite complex.
Very
quite
complex.
a few areas.
Yeah.
And in the debate, rather than the candidates, rather than giving information to the average Americans about what they should know and why they should vote for them,
Yes.
it's a lot of about their personal lives, about the past.
Yes.
So I feel like they did not quite answer the question.
The needed information that the people need, it was not there.
Exactly.
They didn't answer the question properly, fully.
This is why most of my friends who are Americans, they do not know who to vote for. They go like, okay, I think Donald is better than Hillary, or Hillary is better than Donald. That's why I'm going to vote for them.
Yeah.
They do not have actual reasons to say why I will.
Facts,
Exactly,
information.
Exactly. And I think that's what's been missing the most
Yes.
from.
And here's a gentleman from outside the country, from another country, Greece, the cradle of democracy, right? Athens. So tell us, how are the elections in Greece? Is there more information about policy, about details, as opposed to personality as there in the United States?
Definitely.
What do you think? Much more, right?
Yes, try to keep politics we're a little bit behind now. We're not doing that great. But when there is an election, yes, there is a lot more information about what the candidate is going to do to the country to make the country better, rather than about their own personal background.
And that's the one major difference between American elections and much of the elections around the world. And that's one of our weaknesses here, focusing so much on like a soap opera, you know, and personalities as opposed to principles.
Exactly.
And the political parties are not taking strong stands on principles either.
That's right.
And there's another problem that I see, and I wrote a book recently about it called Dollar Democracy, with Liberty and Justice for Some. And the subtitle is How to Reclaim the American Dream for All. That book looks at policy areas such as healthcare, education, food safety, GMO foods, Wall Street crash. It looks at the military-industrial complex, how we're overspending money in some areas that we shouldn't be, and weapons that don't work and not needed, and we could put money into education instead. So each chapter is a topical area. And I look at how money in politics, through funding these campaigns and through lobbying, has affected these areas negatively, and how we can fix that. So that's very important. And you mentioned that in a country like Greece, when we know that there's been crises, but a lot of this crisis that's occurring in Greece and parts of Europe, it began here with the stock market meltdown with the banks. The banking crisis that started here, right? 2008. It infected those banks there because these loans that were made, predatory loans, that were terrible loans that could go default any time, were sold to European banks. It started with that. There were also situations where some of the richest people in Greece were allowed to take money outside the country and not pay taxes. Is that true?
That's exactly what's been happening.
And put it in Swiss banks. So the government didn't have enough money, tax money to spend on social programs that were important. They went into deficit spending. So this is a problem we're starting to come to in the United States. In a certain level, we're lacking funding also. We're going into debt. This is another thing that we're talking about. Donald Trump mentions the debt. not so much as some other candidates, that we are almost $20 trillion in debt. And the federal government has borrowed all this money to spend on programs because it basically has given tax cuts and tax breaks and loopholes to big corporations and super wealthy people over the years. And when they do that, there's not enough money for social investment. So Hillary's talking about bringing money back for social investment, to put money into education, into infrastructure, building new products. I think that makes a lot of sense.
It does.
You know, it really does. And so a lot of these problems are similar across the borders. But the way we handle them is different, isn't it? And as coming from Greece, you can see it so clearly.
That's right.
It's a pleasure to meet you. Your name again?
George.
George.
Thank
We're
you.
going to have this dude us over again and have
George is awesome.
Yeah, he's awesome. Great having him here at Cypress College. You come and talk to my class sometime.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to thank Cypress College for allowing our students, the students to vote, and
Absolutely.
because most people don't vote, and at least by doing this, we get everybody a little bit more involved.
Absolutely.
Like I feel I have a better idea now.
Mm-hmm. Very good. And then Brittany's over there. Come on here and say goodbye, Brittany. We're going to wrap this up here in a couple of minutes. She's the vice president.
Well, our presidents are actually great.
I know. I met the president. So she also spoke.
General affairs.
Come
Get
here
in
and say
here.
a few more things that you haven't had a chance to talk about policy. You were talking about why you did this event earlier.
Yeah.
Just tell us about what you feel about where the country is going right now and where it needs to go. If you like, for a minute or two, a few minutes. Or do you want to just talk a bit more about process? Do you think these elections are valuable
Look
to
at
where
you,
we
just had 3 guys give up.
There you go. There you go. That's the best thing about tonight.
I'm a feminist. I treat everyone equally.
Thank you. Give me 5.
Good job. Okay, so introduce yourself again. Reintroduce yourself. Say hello again.
Hello,
Brittany.
everybody. It's Brittany again.
Come a little bit closer.
Oh, sure. What was the
The question was, did you have any comments on policy itself? Because the first time you spoke this evening, you told them why you had this event and why your associate student sponsored the event. But
Correct.
do you have any issues that you'd like to talk about that either Trump or Clinton did not reach or did? And what do you think of those issues? You think they dealt with the education issue and student debt well enough? Or student opportunity?
In all honesty, I'm
Yeah.
just going to say I'm very sticky with
Okay.
these candidates. I'm going to be all honest.
Yes, please.
I hate both of them.
Okay.
I disagree with both of them.
Yes, let's hear it.
Well, I'm really surprised on how, our American population has made decisions on our candidates. Both of them, they have their highs, they have their lows. But I feel like both of them aren't really expressing, like students.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of the students that are voting, hopefully, in this upcoming election, they're the ones that are going to be guiding us for 4, maybe 8 years.
That's right.
And it's going to be affecting us much more than it'll be affecting, let's say what, baby boomers,
Right, right.
Because I'm 22.
For a longer time, right?
Exactly.
For a much
yeah.
longer time.
So,
Yeah.
I'm 22,
Yeah.
and let's say either one of the candidates let's say they get re-elected,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be 8 years of my life, almost
Yes.
going into 30 years, right in the prime
Prime of your
time
life.
of my life.
Yes.
And, I just think it's not, I feel like they both are just kind of attacking each other.
Mm-hmm.
Attacking each other and not really focusing on what they really want to do. I don't know if anyone has said that, but there's things all over the place where it's like, it sounds like my kids are fighting.
It doesn't it a lot of the time?
And it's like,
Personal attacks?
Yeah, and I was able to vote when Obama was going to be reelected, and those debates were just so much more informative.
They were substantive.
They
and
were,
informative,
and the candidates really wanted to focus on the American people, not defending themselves. But I also feel like it's, I don't want to point fingers, but I feel like it's one personality up there that's just making the other person just kind of like protect their image as well. But I feel like the debates are more an image-like, on more keeping their image, making them the perfect candidate and this and that, instead of really focusing on what people think.
Yes, and what people need.
Exactly.
And want.
Exactly. So that's I'm very sticky when it comes to this.
I think that's an excellent analysis because as a political scientist, I can tell you're spot on that one. Because democracy has to be about issues, public issues, not private personalities, And we've turned it into a private entertainment game over here in the United States. And this is like the worst of the American system, which already needed more substance and not so much personality. This is even the worst. And they're the two most unpopular candidates in the history of the modern history of the American democracy.
Yeah, and it's super
And it
funny.
doesn't serve the public, does it?
No, and
To
it's
have
super
that.
funny where it's like you hear more laughs than you hear like exactly, like wow, that's right. You hear more laughs. And I feel like it's not just the crowd, it's an overall general thing. Like I've been to another part, I've listened, and my family laughs at what they say, and it's like it's not about entertainment.
It's not about entertainment.
It's not about entertainment.
It's serious.
Yeah, and this is something that it's gonna affect us later on.
Absolutely.
And it's like it's not. I fully feel like it's not really taking they're not really taking advantage of it. And I feel like these 3 debates were a waste. Were like a total of 5 hours of my time wasted.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
And it's not fair.
Yeah.
It's not fair. Where it's like we have to go outside of the debates, where we have to listen to the speeches that are on random channels where it's really hard to find to really listen to what they say because they're not in each other's presence.
Yeah.
Where on the other side, it should not be like that.
It should not be that way.
It should be where it's like, this is what I know and this is what I want to do, instead of rebuttaling each other and just making it entertainment, like we were saying.
Yeah, it's a big.
That's how
But
I
thank
feel
you for
about
being
it.
so honest and so, I think, very clear about what's really going on to a large extent. And that's the first way to fix something is to know what the truth is, right?
Yeah, but unfortunately we can't fix it because that's our last debate. But it's okay.
Well, and we got these choices now,
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
it's something that's considered. Well, it's really great to be here this evening, folks. I'll be coming back here to AS and to do more interviews, maybe broadcast from here.
Yes.
It'd be great. And thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you
Vice
for your time.
President?
Thank you.
President?
Thank you.
See you Monday.
Good to see you. Yes, my pleasure.
George.
Thank you so much for being here and sharing with everyone on this. And this will be, of course, picked out. It's on YouTube, and it will be on YouTube permanently. And then we'll be having more live streaming from Monday through Thursday. I go on the show that I have hosted for half an hour, from 7 to 7:30 normally. And at 7:15 we have call-ins.
Oh, okay.
So people can call in and talk. Phone number's right there. People can call in and talk to us. So if you have friends that would like to watch it, and if you'd like to come and interview on it again, we'll do that again.
Perfect.
On other issues as well.
Thank you, Ms. Mathews.
Remember, the politics doesn't end with the election, right? And
Yes,
let's
sir.
go back to the ancient Greek word, politics. Where did the word politics come from, which has become a dirty word in America?
I know what it means.
Polis.
Politics. Poly means many, tix means blood cells.
Yeah, that's a good dad joke about it.
Alrighty then.
Of course I have. Yeah. 'Cause that's the negative joking way of looking at it. But the truth is, speaking of in front of my friend who's from Greece, it comes from the Greek word polis. And polis means community, right? City-state, the city-state where the Greeks lived was their community. So to be political meant to be involved with the affairs of, by, and for the community. To be really involved and to make decisions for and by and of the community. And yet the word has taken on such a negative connotation when it should be a very positive thing. So thanks for turning it around. We have our gentleman from the ancient Greek. By the way, I've been to Greece. It's just a beautiful country. I was in Athens and I went to Peloponnesus. And to Mykonos and Rhodos, the islands are just gorgeous. But the history and the culture, everyone's got to go to Greece.
Yeah, you're making this home.
We should have a semester abroad over there. From Cyprus. Okay, great, very good. Thank you so much. Let me go ahead and sign off here.
Alrighty then.
And see if we can say goodbye, everyone. Okay, wait, goodbye.
Cypress!
Yeah. There we go.
Thank you so much for that time. But if you guys can
My
take
pleasure.
George. Actually,
Now it's gonna be on YouTube for everyone.